Hey everyone, I want to talk about a topic that I personally don't talk about a lot on the channel, and that is my perceptions on guilt. It's not that guilt and shame didn't try to sneak in on my journey to OCD and anxiety recovery. It just wasn't a primary aspect like it was for, say, someone that suffered primarily with real event false memory like Rob, or POCD like Sam and Gemma, and Jade as well, etc. It just wasn't something that really was something that affected me. I had a lot of fears of rejection, don't get me wrong, but it was a self-rejection that didn't come with a lot of shame and guilt. It came with a lot more anxiety. So before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button down below. Let me know what you think about this. I think I've thought deeply about this when I've read all the books on the reading list, when I've read books outside the reading list, whether it's philosophy, just thinking about why this has not become a problem. Not that it could never become a problem, but why it hasn't become a primary problem in my life. And if you need help with anything, please reach out to Phil at OCDrecovery.com. The webinars are growing all the time. They're massive. We had numerous webinars lately, over 90, 100 people. Thank you so much. I remember when we first started doing them, when I first started doing them 4 years ago, you know, some of the smaller ones would have like 8 people. Now it's grown even the small topics where people don't come a lot. You could have 40 or 50. So we've made great progress. We're very, very adamant on spreading correct information when it comes to OCD and anxiety recovery, because there's so much incorrect information on OCD and anxiety recovery. But again, these are well-intentioned people, and holding that against anyone is not going to do anyone any good. So it is important to say that over and over again. People do try their best, but this is a very tricky disorder, complexity in the mind. It's hard to see unless you've had it at the chronic level. So why don't I experience shame and guilt? Now, healthy shame and healthy guilt has come up in my life numerous times. If I did something that I thought was bad, maybe I got into a disagreement with Erica and I raised my voice a little bit, I can have that healthy dosage of guilt, because healthy guilt and shame can push you in the right direction to make change. So there is a benefit in negative emotions. There's strong benefit in negative emotions. There's really good benefit in very strong negative emotions and consequences. It's why I'm so big on consequences, whether it's physical consequences, emotional consequences. I think a society without consequences is a big, big problem, because people can learn from those consequences. So, like, let's use the example again. So just a basic example, life example. Yelled at Erica, raised my voice. I've done this plenty of times in my life. Not something I would say I'm proud of, but it doesn't give me any shame and guilt, because what I have to do is, how do I change that in order to give me a better opportunity to not feel shame and guilt in the future? I never try to change anything in the moment. But I always kind of knew growing up, it was probably how I was raised, my environment, my mom's parenting style, which I hated at the time, but I'm very thankful for. My mother was quite strict. There was no wishy-washy bullshit in the Pinella household. My mom did not mess around like that. She was raised in Brooklyn in the 60s and 70s. There's no joking around. And I love my mom to death. Obviously, my father was a little bit different parenting style. I love my father to death, but I thought my father was actually probably not the best parent per se, and terrific provider, great father, but maybe not from a parenting, the actual definition of looking after your children outside from a monetary perspective, but like lesson learned. I think my mom was very, very good at that, and I learned that. So if someone has chronic shame and guilt, that's coming from the belief that either that should never happen. If it does happen, they're the worst person ever. And that doesn't actually give them the opportunity to make any change if they constantly stay in that cycle. I deserve to die. I deserve to go to jail. I'm a horrible person. Even if you've committed murder, even if I was to get into an altercation with someone, pull out a pistol and shoot them in the chest and kill them, I would still need to apply acceptance in jail for the rest of my life, and or if I was on death row. And I would have an opportunity at that, because we've seen people, I've watched plenty of prison documentaries where people have done horrendous, heinous acts, whether it's sexual crimes, whether it's violent sexual crimes or murder, anything like that, and they've learned to accept themselves even if society still deems them as evil and terrible. There is no such thing as evil. Evil does not exist. Evil would mean 100% bad all the time. There's also no such thing as a good person. You know, it's easy to believe these things. 99.9% of people believe in good and bad totalities, but even Ted Bundy, when he was a kid, would be a playful child. I know, because I've watched documentaries and excerpts from his brother and how he was as a kid. So, and many people were like that. And then things happen to them in their life and the trajectories. We're not agreeing with the behavior. We dislike the behavior. Well, acceptance doesn't mean agreement. But I've always kind of knew that, because of the way I was raised, that feeling that, and again, this doesn't mean that if I had it, I'd be able to turn that off. That's not what I'm saying. But I knew that in order to get to where I needed to be, which is unconditional self-acceptance, when there's shame and guilt, it's 99, don't get me wrong, other in life acceptance is in there, but it's primarily self-acceptance. I knew I would need to accept myself, dislike my actions, and I never try to prove my way out. So that's something that, well, what if you are that person? What if you are a killer? What if you are a rapist? If those are the things that I am, and that I was in situations that I committed, I still would need to accept myself unconditionally. And that would give me a better opportunity to not perform those behaviors again. But you can never say for sure. You want to know how you know this? Because you hear people, I would never do that again. You know how many people have said that about drugs and they go back to drugs? You know how many people have said that about certain crimes, they go back to doing those particular crimes? To say I know for a fact I would never do that again, I don't say that about my adult website addiction and all the stuff and all the anger stuff I went through, those behaviors. Though I use those too because it's something that many people can relate to. Oh, I'm never going to do those things again. Not me, no way, no how. But that's not true because I have relapsed numerous times on to where I am today, which is almost at 2.5 years. But it took me about a couple of years to get that. I mean, I was at 238 days not watching adult websites. I relapsed. I had the good sense to not beat myself up too much. I did in the very, very beginning, first week or so. And I said, wait, you made a mistake. You're human. You got a little bit too cocky. Now let's move forward. Now let's go with how can you make sure this probably doesn't happen in the future again, but there's no way to know for sure. So again, shame and guilt are going to come in different situations. You're not going to be able to handle those when they're happening. You are going to have to change the way you view shame and guilt. No sensation I'm completely neutral on any sensation. I don't like certain things, but I don't hate anxiety or hate panic. I think they're highly uncomfortable, but I don't hate them. I don't hate chronic shame and guilt, even though I've never really felt them at the chronic level latching for a while. I don't put any expectations on the way I feel in anything in my relationship. And this all goes into how you view the shame and guilt itself. You do need to work on that belief, how you actually view shame and guilt itself as a singular, like, I hate the way I feel when I have shame. I hate it. I hate the dark cloud. Well, that you also not only have to work on the underlying unconditional self-belief, but you also have to work on the belief that's underlying behind the actual sensation itself. So many people miss this. You can get better accepting unconditional life acceptance when it comes to panic disorder and accepting you can have panic attacks everywhere. But if you don't accept the actual sensation of panic, you're going to just hit your head against the wall. Boom, 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 boom. You will not make a lot of progress. You do have to think those things through. But that would be one, and I have a very good sense of where shame and guilt comes from. And I had to have incredible unconditional self-acceptance because my body dysmorphia for 15 years is the fear of self-rejection and not so much other rejection. It was much more self. I did not like looking or feeling a certain way. So I had to work on that. Even though it was more anxiety and panic driven, it could still flip over to the other way and do shame and guilt. So when you're looking at that, remember that healthy shame and guilt can help you change direction. I don't like the way I feel, this and that, move forward. You still have to apply those same principles when you have chronic shame and guilt, but it is important to realize that those rigid demands you're holding on yourself, I'm a horrible person, I'm evil, this should never happen. If that does happen, I'm the biggest piece of shit ever. That is what's fueling that shame and guilt cycle. So thank you so much for watching. Just a quick video for today. If you have any questions, please write down below. You can ask me anything you want about anything in any of the videos. I respond to everyone, even people that disagree with us. That's okay. We're not going to agree on everything, and this is an important concept. So enjoy the rest of your day. Remember, Phil at OCDrecovery.com, and I hope to hear from you soon. Have a good one, everyone.